All right, good morning, everybody. It's December 15th, and the reason I bring up the date is that this is the last Grand Round session for the calendar year 2025. We will not be holding Grand Rounds on December 22nd or the 29th. Everybody gets a 2-week break for the holidays. We're going to resume Grand Rounds on the first Monday in January, which I think is the 5th, if I recall correctly, and we'll have a great special Grand Rounds that session. So everybody enjoy the holidays for the next few weeks. But today, to close out 2025, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce Dr. Aimee Gardner to you, who's a professor of surgery in the GI Trauma and Endocrine Surgery Division. By way of background, she did her undergraduate degree at the University of Arkansas and then went to the University of Akron, where she got her PhD in industrial and organizational psychology before she became an instructor at the University of Akron. She then went on to be the Associate Dean of Education and the Director of Surgical Education, the Assistant Director of Simulation, and an Assistant Professor of Surgery at University Texas Southwestern. She rose up through the ranks and then became an associate professor with tenure at Baylor in Houston. She also became an associate dean there and then was promoted eventually to professor with tenure at Baylor. She was then recruited to the University of Colorado in 2023. She became the associate dean of faculty development and is the director of the Academy of Medical Educators. Last year, she did a Fulbright scholarship and she visited the Royal College of Ireland and had a great experience there before coming back here. Over the years, she's had an incredible amount of academic achievement. She's had a total of 16 extramural funded grants and has done a lot of work with the Society of American Gastrointestinal Endoscopic Surgery. She's given a total of 91 invited lectures. She's given 20 national workshops and 102 podium presentations, 29 poster presentations, published over 125 manuscripts, 6 book chapters. It's my distinct pleasure to welcome her to Surgery Grand Rounds, where she's going to talk about the science of intraoperative teaching. Dr. Gardner.
Good morning. Thanks for ending your calendar year with me. Hope you all have exciting holiday plans. So first, delighted to be here. I'm excited to reemerge from a little bit of maternity leave to spend some time with you and then go back into the cuddles later this afternoon for just a few more weeks before I rejoin in 2026. So I would love to share with you a couple of things. One, I'm currently president of the Association for Surgical Education. It's an honor, it's a privilege, and it's also a lot of fun. And I would encourage you, mark your calendars for next April. We're going to be having our annual meeting in Atlanta, right next to Association Program Directors in Surgery, to kind of fill out that Surgical Education Week, and would love for you to join. We have a lot of fun things, creative ideas that align with kind of our theme this year of family fun in the future, and would love to see all of your smiling faces. If you happen to have submitted an abstract or kind of symposium, workshop, et cetera, for consideration this year, I'll let you know those abstract decisions are coming out later this week, so you'll get to know. Again, it is fun to be president of society. It's nice to be able to kind of put your own kind of spin on the society on the annual meeting. And one thing that I'm very passionate about and that I think is really great because it resonates with a lot of work that the Department of Surgery has been doing with Dr. Christian's and others' leadership is really supporting our families and make it easier and having more equitable opportunities for people to kind of rise up, network, get to know each other, and kind of just support them in their lives at home. To that end, one of my presidential initiatives for the ASE is free childcare at the next annual meeting, and we're super grateful for the Department of Surgery helping support this initiative. And some of us got together just last week, a weekend, and put a little promo video together for you over in the Cape. So I'm excited to just share that with you. So you can
patient is peritoneal. We need to go to the OR immediately. Alert anesthesia and activate the mass transfusion protocol.
Is the team ready in the OR?
Yes, we have our best team ready for the operation.
Ready. Be careful, don't touch the edges. Are we looking for the wishbone or the funny bone? Give me what I need, not what I asked for. What happened to the gallbladder? I threw it away, we don't need it. What? Okay guys, we need to talk about that act procedure. Can you please behave? We're always serious. Does this hurt? Does this hurt? Does this hurt? Does this hurt? Scalpel. I told the patient he had acute appendicitis, and he said, "Is that better than the ugly one?" Hey, am I going to console on this? Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you for indulging me. And I hope you found some of your partners and colleagues, kids, making cameos in there. A lot of fun. I promise we're going to get to intraoperative teaching in just one moment. But as you know, I'm also director of the Academy of Medical Educators here at the University of Colorado School of Medicine. And we have a lot of momentum, a lot of support from leadership across campus, and we're trying to do it all. And I hope that you'll join us in the Academy. I know I presented at the faculty meeting earlier this year about kind of the benefits of being in the Academy. We're continuing to kind of build out those perks, those benefits, those opportunities to kind of socialize, connect and learn together. And so when the applications open again next spring, I hope that you'll consider dropping your name in, and always happy to answer any questions and hold your hand through that process. I will say that we do have a surgery department here on campus that is leading the way in the highest proportion of their faculty who are in our Academy of Medical Educators. It's OBGYN, and I would love for that to be the Department of Surgery leading the way. So we just get another dozen or so people, and we'll really be leading across campus participation in the Academy. If you are a member of the Academy or you're interested, just a few things to kind of have on your calendar. Our annual Education Innovation Symposium is next May. Again, this is a time for us to kind of come together, learn. We actually have our invited keynote is Dr. Pat O'Sullivan from UCSF. Many of you may know she's a renowned surgical education researcher and faculty developer. So she's going to be on campus spending some time with us, doing some workshops, some faculty development, inspiring us. So we'll hope that you'll join us for that. The abstract deadline is technically today, if you want to drop some of your work in here. But if you're just now learning about it and want to submit something for consideration to present next spring, just let me know and we'll sneak that in. Also, another thing that we've put in place for the spring is our inaugural Spark Tank event. So this is kind of educational innovation Shark Tank style event where we have a bundle of donors coming together, and they're going to actually serve as the judges and hand out some money to some of the winning teams. This is the first year we're doing it here at CU School of Medicine from the Academy standpoint. And we had over 20 or so teams apply for to be that kind of final group that will compete in February. I'm happy to say that of the 5 selected, 2 are from the Department of Surgery. So I hope that you'll come, you'll join, support your colleagues, and we'll see some exciting pitches. And then finally, January 1st, our Teaching Scholars Program. This is a longitudinal faculty development course, a great opportunity to network, hone your skills around curriculum development, assessment evaluation, et cetera, et cetera. Would love to see some representation from this group there. And then also in January, we're opening up our education awards that we just rolled out last year for the first time. You may recall that Dr. Nicole Christian was awarded the Education Trailblazer last year, and we would love to see some more recognition of our surgery faculty this year as well. And each of these awards does come with a $1,000 stipend for the faculty to use at their discretion. So excited about that. And of course, we always have these faculty travel awards that if you don't have funds at your kind of home department or home unit to support your educational scholarship dissemination, you can come to us if you're a member of the Academy, and we'll help get your bags packed and send you out to kind of build that reputation and get that work out there. So thank you for that moment. Now let's chat a little bit about the science of teaching in the operating room. Couple disclosures, none of these relevant. I am co-founder of a company called SurgeWise that provides advice on selection assessment to undergraduate, postgraduate medical education programs. Again, I mentioned the president of the ASE and also associate editor of the Journal of Healthcare Simulation. A couple of learning objectives today. So one, just want to share with you some of the current research and kind of factors relating to intraoperative teaching. Specifically want to narrow in and make sure that you have this framework in mind of this idea of kind of briefing, intraoperative teaching, and debriefing. And specifically chat about and reflect upon proactive strategies for kind of developing this kind of shared language and shared model with our trainees and our learners for teaching and procedural settings, so that we're both kind of acknowledging that we're both bringing something to the table and able to kind of maximize and optimize those interactions. So first, I'll do a little quizzy for those of you in the room. For those of you on Zoom, just kind of mentally tally through. So I want you to think about one of the more recent cases that you had with one of your learners. So just think of any case in the recent past that you can remember in which you were teaching a learner something. You don't need to cherry pick, just think through what were you doing last week, what were you doing yesterday, what were you doing this morning. For those of you, I acknowledge not all of us are surgeons, clinicians in the room. So if you're a scientist, administrator, researcher, trainee, et cetera, just also be thinking about the last time that you taught someone something. You were tasked with teaching them, a new process, new procedure, new policy, walking them through a new Excel spreadsheet, whatever it might be. Just be thinking about that event. You got it? Okay. So thinking on that last case you had with a learner, I want you to maybe just count on your fingers or maybe tally if you have a pen in your hand. Give yourself a point, if you will, for each of these things that you did in that last case. So before the case, did you assess the learner's level of experience and kind of tailor those expectations accordingly? So did you say, have you done this before? What's your level of experience? What did it look like last time? Did you specifically talk about learning objectives for that specific case? Did you clarify roles and responsibilities? I'll be doing this. I expect that you'll be doing this. And did you make any effort kind of intentionally to create kind of this psychologically safe environment for allowing your learner to ask questions, speak up, and inquire when needed? You've got your tally? Okay, we're gonna keep counting, so keep that hand going. What about during the case? When you were in the case, when you're in that operation, in that learning event episode, did you narrate your thought processes during key decision points? I'm choosing this, I'm worried about this, I want to keep my eye on this, etc. Did you use specific questioning techniques to kind of engage the learner? Did you provide opportunities for hands-on practice? Did you pause when needed to explain anatomy, technique, other things that you're considering? And were you able to kind of balance that efficiency in those teaching and instructional roles while monitoring kind of patient care? Got your tally? Okay, and last one. What about after the case? Did you proactively invite the learner to reflect on how that went? Did you give specific kind of timely feedback? Did you discuss what went well, what could have been improved? And did you talk to them specifically about, next time you see each other, things that they should be working on, kind of ongoing learning opportunities for next time? We all have our number. There are 14, 18, 13. We're good there. There are 13 little check boxes. How many of you have at least 5? Good bundle. 7? Nice. 10? Couple of folks. Impressive. Where did you struggle on this? What were some of the harder aspects for you to think about? When is the last time I did that? Yeah, so Dr. Schulich mentioned maybe it's those bookends. We're probably doing great in the case, but maybe that before that prep, that briefing, and maybe that debriefing. Great. So the reality of teaching in the OR, this is no surprise to any of you whatsoever. Honest conversation, right? Critical component of surgical education. This is how we train our future surgical workforce, right? We're learning procedures, we're teaching them as we go through them, but it's challenging, right? Because we have these kind of dual demands and these complications, complexities of balancing this patient safety and this, goal of instruction. But we know it's important, so we have to figure this out. And there's a number of reasons why, right? Because we know that high quality intraoperative instruction is linked to a number of beneficial outcomes far and wide. We know that it leads to enhanced learning and intention, and retention. So high quality structured teaching in the OR helps people, their ability to kind of retain knowledge and apply those to novel situations and generalize. We know that high quality operative teaching is also linked to improved clinical thinking and decision making. We know that when people engage in kind of structured teaching, that they also receive higher marks, if you will. So it's related to higher teaching satisfaction, faculty performance. Also, when people have good experiences with you, as they're learning with you in the OR and other procedural settings, we know that that is more likely to create future surgeons. So it impacts their interest and likelihood that they're going to pursue a surgical career. So there's a workforce component here, right? And also just better integration of learning, better able to kind of put it all together across these different learning environments, across different types of instructors, et cetera, when we're all working together and trying to achieve these aims. But the OR as a learning environment has a number of unique features, right? It's a little bit different than many other specialties, other types of educational environments, other places where we are trying to equip people with new knowledge and skills. Lots of different reasons why, right? High stakes, fast paced environment. We're gonna do some pros and cons, some challenges, some benefits here. So I'll ask for your participation. When you think about high stakes, fast paced environment, getting these operations done, whenever there's high demands, what are some of the challenges from an educational standpoint that brings with it? Patient safety. What are some of the benefits? Are there any benefits of working and teaching in this type of setting? Okay, so realistic preview, it sounds like, planning for real life. Potentially better results. Dr. Naylor? Okay, perfect. So more interaction, potentially more volume and opportunities for learning, given the nature. Beautiful. Yeah, so, obviously high stress environments or kind of fast paced environments bring with them some potential challenges. Limited time, we have to focus on patient safety, but it allows us to teach prioritization, right? It allows us to give a realistic preview. It allows us to perform at a really high level, right? We know about eustress and stress activation theory and all of those things. What about this world of hierarchy in medicine, and specifically in kind of surgical education environments? What are some of the challenges of teaching in this world where there is a hierarchy? Okay, so it can be hard for trainees to feel comfortable to speak up or to ask for what they need or want. Yep.
I mean, it's a very scarce resource.
Yep. Yep. Perfect. Yeah, so we think about psychological safety, we think about some of the logistics, the time, but also in this world where we're working with team, medicine is a team sport, right? There's opportunity to kind of model professionalism, teamwork, and hone some of those, non-technical skills that we know are really hard to kind of crystallize for some of our learners. What about just like, some physical things? So limited physical space. and whatever that means for you, because we're all working from different angles and processes here. Challenges with teaching when you have limited physical space. Yeah, so it can limit how many people can actually be engaged or even just see what is happening. Pros? Any benefits? We're trying to be glass half full here. Yeah. 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 So sometimes these limitations kind of force us to be creative, right? And so we have our monitors, we have our screens and other technologies that have helped kind of pave the way towards kind of helping us out a little bit. Patient confidentiality and consent, perhaps not surprisingly, sometimes that feels like it can be restrictive or can maybe impact learner involvement in some situations. But also, again, an important component, and again, someone mentioned kind of a realistic preview, this is how we do medicine, and obviously offers an opportunity for us to kind of model professionalism and talk about some of the important reasons why we do, a lot of these different things. Unpredictable case flow and timing. I know, I'm sure a very exciting aspect of all of your careers. Any positive things, any benefits?
Well, this is going to be a part of your career the rest of your life.
Perfect. Yep. Okay. So get exposed early and be kind of realistic about this is what you want to do. This is how it's going to look. So let's talk about skills, strategies, processes now. Beautiful. Yeah. So sometimes it's hard to plan those teaching moments, but it enables us to be kind of nimble, to be creative, to be thoughtful, and kind of adaptable, right? And kind of engage in kind of more case-based learning. What about the technical complexity of the procedure? So sometimes what you're doing is well beyond what, a medical student rotating with you, maybe an intern, might be able to kind of really get involved with, or might require a little bit more of a learning curve before they can really kind of engage and understand. What are some of the challenges associated with kind of the technical complexity of a lot of the work that y'all do? Yep.
Well, I mean, you have to have multiple learners. The other learners, rather than one.
Yeah, so especially important when we have multiple folks. So yeah, so when we're doing kind of, very technical, very complex, aspects, procedures, obviously we want to be thinking about like cognitive overload, right? Of like, are you going to be able to even digest, what I'm trying to communicate or what's going on here? But what does that mean? That means that it's going to be also provide us a rich, opportunity to talk about some of these things. Let's break it down a little bit. Let's challenge ourselves. Let's talk about technique. Let's talk about anatomy. Let's think about the decision-making and kind of breaking all of that down. Specialized equipment, same way, right? Same situation. People might be unfamiliar. They may not be ready yet, but also gives us an opportunity for kind of hands-on learning and kind of practicing those skills before they come to the OR. And then multitasking. So this is kind of the heart of what we're talking about here, right? Is we have this kind of these dual demands of balancing patient safety and making sure that outcome is where we want it to be, while also instructing those learners who are with us. And of course, offers the opportunity for us to role model, see that, be the change you want to see in the future in terms of instructing them and getting them involved as much as you can as we go through it. So the OR as a learning environment has many, many other things that we could talk about in terms of pros, cons, otherwise, that make it really complex. This is not new news to any of you, right? And so it requires us to think about what are some things that we can be doing? What are some things that we can have in our toolkit to make sure that regardless of all these complexities, that we're able to make sure that we're still educating our learners, checking in, making sure that they're kind of growing and meeting their career goals, their learning goals, as well as our goals for them. Fortunately, there are bundles of people who've studied teaching in the OR, for years and years and done literature review and systematic reviews and kind of identified if this happens, then what happens? Do people learn when this happens? What are some of the things that we can kind of manipulate in terms of intraoperative teaching, and how does that impact, later learning, later retention, and also people's, kind of interest in pursuing additional kind of learning and educational episodes and things like that. So those dual demands I mentioned earlier are great for us to kind of study some of that. So when you look at this list, it can be daunting, but fortunately we have a pathway forward. So some folks, including myself, have even put together intraoperative teaching courses where we have surgeons come in and talk about breaking it down of how do people learn. Let's talk about the basics. Let's talk about dual task interference. Let's talk about the circumplex model of emotion, and using that to kind of put it together for kind of an application. And we've done a lot of fun work in this space and been able to kind of measure the impact of courses like this on actual teaching behaviors later on. I know some of you are squinting a little bit because it looks like you see a familiar face and some of this group. You have indeed spotted one of your own from 10 plus years ago. So that's Michael Cripps, your future interim division chief of GITES in an intraoperative teaching course in his younger days. A very active participant, as you can see here. But this great opportunity for people to kind of put it together, come together, and kind of share lessons learned. So what we've learned from doing things like this is that sometimes you just have to sprinkle a little sugar on it, a little structure on it, and that'll help go a long way. So we can add structure to the process of teaching in procedural settings in the OR, and that can help achieve a lot of goals for both ourselves and our learners. And you might argue it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. So again, that briefing, intraoperative teaching, and debriefing phase. So from a briefing standpoint, so Dr. Schulich mentioned that this might be something that kind of falls to the side, maybe isn't always kind of on our radar, something that we're doing kind of consistently when we're working with our trainees. But when we talk about briefing, what are we talking about? We're talking about setting the stage with the learner. So things like reviewing the goals of the operation. So making sure you have that same foundation, that same mental model of these are our goals. This is what we want to happen. This is what we're trying to achieve by going in the OR right now. We always want to collect information on prior experience, right? So it's going to make a difference if you're in the OR with a trainee, if they've seen or done that case 1,000 times versus they've never seen it before. And so asking, how has been your experience with this? Have you been involved? Were you able to participate? Have you observed it? What do you know about this? That's going to go a long way in helping kind of create those learning goals together. Exploring how the learner prepared. So I know there's variability in your experiences in terms of if people are coming to the OR, tabula rasa, if you will, or folks who've prepared a lot. I've been reading up on the case. I watched 10 Sages videos. I did this and that. I'm really excited about this. So examining and exploring how they prepared for the case, and using all of that information to set just 1 or 2 learning goals for the operation. Here's where you are, here's where you want to be, and so let's make that a shared goal together. And then using that opportunity to also adopt any shared language. So from observing many surgeons in the OR, I know that you all have your little mannerisms, your words that you like and that people have to kind of acclimate to and get used to, like, or ooh, or type things. And so sometimes, especially when you're working with a learner for the first time, it might just be helpful to let them know. If you hear me say stop, don't freak out. Maybe I have an educational moment I want to share with you. Maybe there's a patient safety concern. Maybe I need to scratch something. I don't know, but you need to share with them kind of, this is how I approach things. This is the language I use. And I want you to kind of be aware of that in advance. So kind of adopting that shared language and encouraging them to have some of their safety words as well. And of course, just setting expectations. Nothing's more disappointing than someone who walks in the OR expecting to do a lot of the case or work on that kind of critical portion and then not getting to do any of it. So just setting the scene of, okay, well, here's our learning goal. Here's what I think we're going to achieve. If you're able to kind of, progress in a timely fashion, in a safe fashion through this, that, and whatever, then I expect that, you'll be able to keep going. If I don't see that, then just FYI, I'm going to take over from there. So all of these things can be accomplished in just a few minutes, right? Where do people like to physically have this conversation with your trainees, or kind of where in the sequence of kind of going into the OR with a trainee do you like to set this foundation? Yep. Okay. So we're prepping before we do our timeout.
Some teams have pre-op conferences.
Okay. So there's already some infrastructure on some teams of here's what we're about to do. So that might be a great opportunity to kind of slide in. Let's talk about how our learners going to be engaged during this next one. Someone had their hand up over here. Yep. Okay, so now we're working a couple of days in advance, it looks like. Yeah. Yeah, so some of you have to kind of do on the fly. Any other tricks up our sleeve? No wrong answers, right? Sometimes what I love about educational sessions like this is that you learn from each other and say, well, I like to do it the scrub sync. I like to do it a couple of nights before. I find that this works best in my strategy. I know we have learners in the room. Learners, when do you want this to happen? What would be ideal timing or setting for you? Raise your hand if you're a learner in this room. Resident, fellow, other? You're shy. Okay, so they're over here. So when would you ideally want this to happen? When would you want your faculty to sit down with you and say, hey, this next case, let's talk about the goals. Let's talk about what your involvement's going to be. I want to chat with you about how you've prepared or what you know about it. Okay. Okay. So we're adaptable over here. Any other preferences? Whenever? Are you happy to just have a conversation? Yes. Okay. There's a lot of head nodding on that one. So they're very excited and eager for this briefing to happen. What about in the case itself? And kind of that intraoperative teaching. So again, we're 3 phases: briefing, intraoperative teaching, debriefing. Intraoperative teaching, we're focusing again on those 1 to 2 goals that we've already chatted about, that we've jointly agreed upon. We're narrating our thought processes, and I'll put a little asterisk there of as best we can, because what do we know about experts? We know that sometimes when people are really have a high level of expertise in some way, they're actually really bad at vocalizing like how to do things. But we want to narrate our thought process. That is a really rich opportunity for folks to learn what you're thinking. What are you worried about? What are you concerned about? What are you keeping your eye on? Why are you doing it that way? Why did you choose to throw your sutures there versus here, et cetera? So narrating our thought processes. Tailoring our teaching, again, that comes into play because we have learners coming from different levels of experience, different levels of interest, different career goals, different specialty interests, et cetera. And so that's where that opening conversation of knowing what they're interested in, knowing what their goals are is helpful, because you're able to tailor that teaching. Again, adopting this kind of shared language of stop or whatever it might be for those safety moments, or particularly education moments, so that you can pause. We can kind of, as much as we can, kind of focus our attention on learning. Because we know that there's signal, there's signal, and then there's a lot of noise. And so as much as we can kind of pause and say, okay, let's focus on an educational thing that I want to make sure you digest, that you understand, and then we're going to keep going. Doing that while you're doing things, is not ideal, right? There's a lot of interference going on there. Always checking for understanding, right? In a kind way, of course, of, okay, are you picking up what I'm putting down? Does that make sense to you? So based on what I just told you, if you saw a patient who looked like this, what would you do? Kind of assessing how adaptive kind of their expertise is becoming, making sure they're able to generalize and kind of critically review and kind of think about and analyze what types of things they're learning there. Of course, open-ended questions, helpful for general conversations, very helpful in the education space, right? Helps you determine their understanding of something and get a little bit of insight into your learner's kind of thought process. And one thing that's the hardest for all of us is kind of embracing comfort in silence. So when you do ask a question or you ask someone to reflect, taking a moment and actually giving them some space to kind of respond is important. Reactions, thoughts, other things you might add to the world of intraoperative teaching, things that should happen or things that you have in your toolkit that you think would be worth sharing as it pertains to kind of teaching in the OR kind of during this space.
One thing that
Okay. Okay, so handing out praise during the learning episode as well, when warranted. Trainees, would you like that? Would you like a little bit more praise as you're doing things well? Yeah. Anything else? Yep. Yep. Yeah. Less likely to have some knee-jerk reaction with stop. Yep. And Dr. Christian, do you, when you have kind of learners on your service for the first time, for example, do you share with them? I'm going to be using the word pause, and here's what it means.
No, I don't.
Yeah, okay, good. Any other words we like to use? Wait, okay, elaborate. Yeah, just wait. Okay, yeah, it's a nice neutral term, wait. Okay, and what about this debriefing stage? How many of you feel like you really struggle with kind of intentionally, proactively having kind of a debriefing conversation after procedures with your learners? Is this a struggle or is this easy to do?
I think it's probably something that is goes on.
Yep. Yeah. It's easy to do some after action review when it hit the fan, right? Yep. Right on the drapes.
Yeah, so
I like it. You've heard of chalk talks. Now we have drape talks. So we like to.
Sitting there, I mean,
Do you find that often learners will like take a photo of the drape?
no,
No, okay. We're having kind of an enduring resource there. Gotcha. Anyone else ride on the drapes? That's a new one for me. Okay. drape writers, beautiful. So debriefing, this final stage, we're kind of closing it up, if you will, for a moment. So again, reflecting on those 1 to 2 goals. So the goals come through every stage, right? Every phase. So again, here's what we agreed upon. Here's what we said we wanted to work on. We were able to achieve that. We weren't able to achieve that, or we, encountered something unexpected, so we had to pivot. But reflecting on those goals, many of you maybe have heard of this kind of framework for having these conversations, this advocacy inquiry approach, where you kind of adopt a little language of I saw, I think, I wonder, to kind of throw that over to your learner, of kind of being able to kind of start a conversation of I saw that you approached it in this way. I think that maybe there were some opportunities here, or maybe you weren't thinking about this, or maybe you didn't see that. I'm wondering how that lands on you. I'm wondering if you saw that. I'm wondering if I'm accurate, etc. So sometimes having, again, a little bit of a heuristic or little framework in your pocket helps kind of lead these conversations. I saw, I think, I wonder. Again, having this conversation, this debrief, so that you're able to reinforce and praise, but also correct and make sure you're putting people back on the right track when needed. Again, checking for understanding, and also using this opportunity to jointly come up with goals for next time. So great, now that we achieved these 1 to 2 things, next time we're in the OR together, I think we can build upon that, and we can do X, Y, or Z. Or maybe, our autonomy goal will be, I'll let you, perform this much more of the procedure, et cetera. And then also having plans for the interim. So every debrief, every kind of feedback conversation, ideally you're having some action items as well. So if we want to keep doing working together, or if you want to continue to get better at this, then here's some things I suggest you work on the interim. Maybe review this anatomy, maybe go to the sim lab and work on these skills, maybe review a few more videos, maybe get a little bit more familiar with the anatomy, whatever, but making sure that you're equipping them with kind of an action plan, so that next time they come to you, they can say, okay, I achieved it. We said that we would do this. I reviewed that. I have these questions. I don't have these questions. I am ready to kind of show that commitment. Easy to do, hard to do. Okay, repetition. Yeah. When do you like to have these debriefing conversations? Is it happening in the OR? Is it happening in the hallway? Is it happening later that day?
Patient is waking up.
When the patient is waking up. Learners, when do you like to have these conversations? Do you have these conversations? Perfect. Good.
I think another training spread out.
Yeah. So a lot of things kind of grabbing for that attention. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. So that means just more, more opportunities to kind of think about intentionality, think about sequence of, okay, are you going to be distracted the whole conversation anyway, because you're thinking about all those beeps you got? So do we need to come back later versus should we do this now while you're fresh? I'm just kind of thinking through that. Great.
Yeah, I think it's hard.
Yep. Well, that's what we're trying to change, right? Perfect. Okay, so briefing, intraoperative teaching, debriefing. So as with any learning, interaction, instructional session, lots of opportunities for us to kind of get off track. So when we think about teaching in the OR specifically, common pitfalls. Some of these are going to be at the beginning. So that is why these bookends, this briefing and this debriefing, are very important, because it helps kind of set the scene, right? And it helps kind of button us up a little bit. So some common pitfalls. Working with a learner and not asking about kind of their prior experience. Not developing any shared goals. How are you going to work towards something if you don't have any shared goals? Sometimes we just assume, right? You showed up, you're on my service, you showed up to this case. I assume that I know what your goals are. You assume that you know what I want to teach you. But we don't like to make assumptions, right? We want to make sure that we think about what have you done before and what do you want to get out of this case right here? Teaching versus telling. So this is very, very hard for us to balance in terms of we do want to narrate and we do want to share what we're doing. And we also want to ensure that we're incorporating things. We're checking for understanding, checking for people's ability to kind of discern, generalize, et cetera. So make sure that we're actually engaging as instructors. And then kind of both sides of the coin here of overloading the learner, trying to dump everything on them and make sure that they become an expert, after case number one. Or just ignoring the learner, like, oh, you're still here. I forgot about you. So making sure that we're kind of balancing that role there. And a lot of this does come from that briefing stage where we talk about what are your goals? Let's be realistic. What are our expectations? How much autonomy do I plan to give you? Or what is kind of my plan for increasing autonomy and progressing throughout the procedure, et cetera, and making sure that we are realistic about how many goals we can accomplish in just one case. So my challenge to you is that on your next case with a learner, that you identify maybe one or two of these boxes that you didn't check off during your last case, and just challenge you to try it out and have that conversation with your learner. It's fun that our learners are here because they've also been exposed to this, so you can help your faculty and prompt them to say, hey, but should we come up with one or two learning goals this time? Or is it cool if we talk about expectations? What are your roles going to be? What are my responsibilities? Or how would you have wanted me to prepare for this? So I hope that you feel empowered, learners, by not being kind of passive recipients, right? But, engaging in your learning accordingly and starting these conversations with your faculty if they haven't already. So challenge you to do that. And I hope that kind of next time we come together, you're all doing great things and excited about some of the extra points that you got next time. So in conclusion, again, teaching in the OR, one of the best things that we can do is have a framework. Briefing intraoperative teaching is a great framework that's well received, well researched. I encourage you to kind of adopt that structure into your own educational practice. Try a new thing in your next OR case. And then we have a bundle of resources for you if you want to nerd out and get to literature, or you want to just check out some of our resources from the academy standpoint. You see some of your friends and fellow surgeons up there. But we have videos around teaching in the OR, around delivering feedback, around creating positive feedback environment, promoting autonomy in the clinical environment, et cetera. And so hope you'll check those out and incorporate those into your efforts. Again, thank you for your time and happy holidays, everyone.
Any questions or comments from the audience? I'm going to read off one thing that I could do today if I want to develop a new skill for education other than attending your grand rounds. So what resource would you point somebody to for just one simple thing that they could do today? Often when we think of a whole project as comprehensive as what your grand rounds has been, you get overwhelmed and you're like, I'm not going to do anything because I don't know where to start.
Yeah, I think the easiest thing you can do is have a conversation with your learner before the case and say, what would you like to get out of this case?
You're going to do a case today. You can do that today. Any other questions or comments?
So, Dr. Gardner, thank you for doing this. I enjoy the topics that you bring to us every year. So the American College of Surgeons, the American Board of Surgery, they're breaking down surgical education into, key chunks or key items. And, there have been apps that have been deployed, like the Simple app, that also try to get more engagement before the case and after the case and document it. But they don't seem to be progressing smoothly. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes. What are my thoughts about the American Board of Surgery partnering with a group for autonomy? Yes. So I think this is a fantastic initiative in terms of the world of intrastructural professional activities and getting kind of micro assessments and making sure that we're able to collect lots and lots of pieces of micro data so that we're able to kind of really illustrate and document kind of the learning curve for our learners. With the American Board of Surgery, specifically with the Simple app, I know there's some kind of headaches there around kind of getting our data, getting it in kind of a usable way. But the general spirit, whether it's Firefly, whether it's Simple or some of these other groups that are kind of coming to the table, is just what we talked about, is having a framework, having a structure so that we can talk about what are our learning goals and offer opportunities for kind of a two-way exchange and also kind of a more informal assessment opportunity of, well, here's what I thought. So it's kind of a structure that's essentially leading us to this exact same ending, if you will. So we're briefing, we're having a conversation. What are your goals? What have you done before? Okay, I'm going to teach you. And then afterwards, I'm going to give you feedback via this app. I'll dictate some of it. I'll put your autonomy level here, et cetera. And so I think that we're all kind of working towards this aim of kind of enhancing a little bit of structure, embracing technology, embracing all this other stuff that can kind of help us get data in kind of a quicker way. As we go through this, I think there's going to be a lot of faculty development. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities to kind of gamify the process to get our learners engaged. But the general spirit, I think, is fantastic, and it's going to be where we're going, right? It's where the world of medical education is going, of micro-assessment and autonomy and entrustment and making sure that we're documenting all these kind of finite behaviors and skills.
Seeing no hands, I'm going to ask another question. You were focused on teaching in the operating room, but you have a lot of experience in simulation. And with Dr. Tom Robinson's leadership, we have an incredible resource in the Department of Surgery, the Center for Surgical Innovation. So just give us a few words on what your view is on the current state, maybe what's coming in simulation training prior to even getting to an actual case in the operating room.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's clearly here. It's continuing to be here, and it's going to be kind of a really exciting opportunity to kind of expand the typical things that we think about when we think simulation. So simulation is obviously no longer just, laparoscopic skills or some suturing on, some porcine model or something like that. We're now doing a lot of simulation for a lot of these kind of non-technical skills, for the leadership, for the teamwork. When I was at the Royal College of Surgeons of Ireland last year, one thing that's really fun is that they have kind of a national mandate that they have formal, they call it non-technical skills, but they have a formal non-technical skills curriculum that everyone in the country has to come back to the sim lab and learn. So we're teaching leadership, we're teaching followership, we're teaching teamwork, we're teaching conflict management, et cetera. And so that's part of the core curriculum at a national level. And so I think we're probably going to continue to work that way too. So we're going to get our skills, we're going to get our knowledge, and that'll be all great. And we're going to continue to kind of expand so that we're looking at kind of the whole surgeon and more holistically of what we're thinking about when we think about competency.
All right, I'll ask one last question then, which is the see one, do one, teach one. Give us your reflection on that cliche.
Yeah, a good start. That's my reflection, a good start. I think that obviously there are a lot of nuance and a lot of intricacies that impact how much we can really embrace that model these days. But good for when it came, and we'll continue to build and educate ourselves.